Frank, thank you very much for having invited us to this place, Lawrence, a cultural center, though you don't like this wording probably.
It's okay. It's a combination of having a gallery, a shop, some event spaces, and a quite big Oriental restaurant. So in a way you could say it's a cultural forum. It's a place, a space for cultural exchange. So I'm pretty fine with cultural forum.
You originally, originally you're probably an architect, but you have spent a lot of your lifetime with staging performances. You are a theater director. You also have a movie after Henrik Ibsen, if I'm not mistaken. And I also found a very interesting quote by Hildegard Knef about you. So, she asked, "Are you an American?" So because the Germans do not do that, you know.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So who are you?
Good question. Long answer probably, because I'm not young anymore, and I'm not an architect. I started to study architecture, but never finished it because I was too busy with other things. I discovered the theater as my platform, and so I studied a little bit acting, and as well some German literature, theater, and I was an assistant theater director for 5 years, and then I started my career mostly as a freelance director.
But how did you come to this theater career? Yes, so because you studied for 3 years architecture and then you changed.
By accident, just by accident. Architecture was not what I thought it would be. I decided being 5 years old that I become an architect. And maybe I did not check enough on this field, and having first jobs in an office and working there, I found it too much technical, being ruled, governed by technical aspects. And I am more, as I found out, I'm obviously more an artist, although I don't like this word or using this word for me, because nowadays everyone is an artist, but I think I'm really one. But it was a process to discover this, and therefore theater was perfect for many decades. I started directing, and then I also became a producer. I built 2 theaters, one in the harbor area of Hamburg that opened 1994 with the Buddy Holly story, big musical theater, and a second one 5 years later in the city of Bremen. I was associate producer to GTA, German Theater Abroad in New York City for 6 years, 7 years, something like this.
So you are also American. So
the quote, the Hildegard Knef quote, yes, that is really uncommon in Europe, especially in Germany. If you are talented in different areas, you always are under the suspicion here to be a charlatan and not to be professional in even one of these disciplines. But I think all men are created unequal, and therefore I have a few talents, and obviously being working in one area is not enough. So yeah, I work here and there. And sometimes people ask me, isn't it difficult to change from theater to and there and and I thought about it, and obviously it's not difficult for me because I do it and it's what I want to do. Maybe in a way everything for me is a stage. So I expanded the theater stage. For example, with this project here where we are sitting, the Lawrence in Berlin Mitte, yeah, 8 years ago. In the meantime, it's already 8 years. I came in touch with refugees here in Berlin, and I became a volunteer to support them to find a new life here. And the result was that I was invited to come to Lebanon, and an Arabic relief organization took me around and showed me their refugee camps, refugee projects.
But you haven't experienced this Arabic culture before you started?
No,
right?
definitely not. This was in 2015 for the first time. And yeah, I have a very good close friend in Lebanon, and he and his family invited me for 15 years to come to Lebanon, but I never did. Then finally I did, and it was a life-changing trip. So I came back, founded Free Artos, Artists and Refugees United for Freedom, and with the idea that we should focus on the support for refugees coming from our business. So we helped a lot musicians, designers, actors, painters, and so on and so on. Because we are the founders, we are from the creative industry, so we have our networks in this area. And yeah, and this was, I have to say, it was quite successful. In this, yeah, and simultaneously we started projects in Lebanon. I started a project in Egypt, which finally failed because of political circumstances. And yeah, and I traveled a lot to Middle East, especially to Lebanon and Syria. And yeah, so I, in a way, I became an insider. And but all this, I think it's an expanding of my stage, and that doesn't mean that I don't take it 100% seriously, what I'm doing, but artists normally, they are very serious with their work, so I am as well. But it also may be typical for my generation of theater directors. A lot of my colleagues try to bring real life on stage. For example, doing theater productions with prisoners, with handicapped people, with refugees. I left the theater and have this stage here, and a university colleague analyzed my biography and said, yes, it seems that you are a social artist. And yeah, maybe he's right. Yeah.
Yes, but when you discovered the Arabic world, well, so I've been only to Morocco, so I've seen a part of this, so I can't speak the language, so you know some words of Arabic. So, but in my perception, if you if you discover this Arabic world for you, So then it is so diverse and so different. So you said that you had worked in Lebanon, in Syria, so this is one part, so then Egypt, this is another part, Morocco is yet another part, and so on and so forth. So just what does it bring to you so when you discover such a rich culture and so diverse culture?
First of all, I have to say that I feel really privileged, not being anymore a beginner in life, to have a chance to, be a beginner in a new field, to discover something which, I hadn't seen, experienced before. And maybe there are long time ago there are family roots in this area, but I don't know anything specific about this. Sometimes I felt like a young boy being there, having difficulties with the language, a lot of things, gestures, behaviors that were very strange. And of course, from the first moment on, I loved Beirut, which is an absolutely amazing city, and the Lebanese are incredible. They went through so many crises. Lebanon is an entire crisis. And it was interesting to see that you can have a quite good living in this chaos of crisis. A fulfilled living, of course. A lot of them are poor compared to Europe, but we have a quite good living. The quality of life is not bad there. Also, the climate is nice, the landscape is beautiful, and all this is true as well for the parts of Syria where I've been. I've only been to Damascus and to the south. And of course, the language and the entire culture is, in the first moment, it's
eye-opening.
And it's a little bit also an Oriental dream coming true, because you can find all these stereotypes. They are still there, and this was the first naive phase of being there, and so that was my first fascination, I would say. And then I started to understand what's really going on, what is the background, what is the basis of all this. And so I became more and more critical. My creative talents are inspired to do something there. And so I created a student exchange between the Berlin Design Academy and Alva, Académie Libanaise des Beaux-Arts in Beirut. So this we did this for many years and brought students from here to Beirut and from Beirut to Berlin. And so I never was a tourist. I always experienced the culture from backstage.
We are now here in Lawrence. First of all, I'm quite curious why this name?
It's not so difficult. Lawrence of Arabia, of course, and
I was thinking of this.
And normally, and in winter times, we show the movie here on a wall. Now we are in summer and it's too bright, so we can't show it. Doing this project here with my colleague Bashar and I, and the shareholders were a little bit shocked about the idea of the two CEOs, and to keep them busy, we gave them the task, find us a name. And so one day one of them came and said, "What about Lawrence?" And I immediately said, "Perfect. Perfect Lawrence that works in all different languages, and it's connected with a myth in a way." So we asked all our newcomers, how does it sound to you? Because it was a quite ambivalent personality. And they said, no, it's okay. He is a problematic person, but it reflects in a way the problem and the disaster of Middle East. Yeah, and so we choose Lawrence, and that's the story of the name.
Yeah, so now you also mentioned your companion, Bashar Hassoun. So how did you get to know him?
In 2014, 2015, 16, we had this refugee wave, as it was called here in Europe, especially in Germany. A lot of Syrian war refugees came to Germany, and all the foundations, all political parties, they all arranged workshops, events, lectures, and so on, dealing with this new topic. And so Bashar and I, we met at a reception for the first time, then at another occasion, and so on. And after we met 3 times, we said, now it's time that we have a coffee. And we had coffee and I learned more about Bashar's biography. He now is in Germany nearly since 10 years. At that time it was, 5 years. And and so we decided to work together. And I think it's quite nice for free artists and refugees united for freedom that there is an artist and a refugee working together as the head of the organization, and it worked pretty well. Bashar got a lot of awards. They didn't give them to me. It's boring to give it to an elderly German, but the young sexy man from Middle East got the awards. So he was awarded with the Farbenbekennen Jury Award 2019, given by the Berlin Senate, and in 2020 from the German government the Deutsche Integrationspreis in the category of Grenzen überwinden. Yeah. So, but it's
overcoming the borders.
Yeah. But these awards are for all of us working here.
How you invite people to work for and with you. So because, if I'm not mistaken, you have 90% of your personnel with the so-called migration background.
Yeah. In the moment, it's even more than 90%. I'm the only German here.
No.
Yeah. So we are something like 95% or so. That was another idea. The idea was to have a meeting point for newcomers in the center of Berlin, in this center of the political Berlin, in the governmental district, and also to give jobs to newcomers. With all the problems that go with the simple idea of we give them work. It wasn't so simple.
So yeah, I can remember our conversation a couple of years ago. You talked about German bureaucracy, and that it was not that easy to make it legal to invite refugees, former refugees, and people with migration background to work with.
Yeah, I can tell you. I can tell stories for hours about German bureaucracy, especially I think the situation in Berlin is even worse than in other cities as far as I hear and can compare. Yeah, incredible. But finally we managed. But it takes a lot of time, and here we have 25 people working for us. Not all full time, but 25 people. You have the paperwork for 25 people, and Bashar is the CEO of Lawrence. I'm not in this status of being a CEO anymore because I care for the next new project, but I'm busy here every day to support him with the German language and the knowledge of structures. And one has to say, sometimes Bashar is in a telephone call with let's say the job center, and he gets a clear no. Then I call them again, pretending that I didn't know that he already talked to them, and can we have this or that, and I get a yes, because a German is calling. This is, how do we call it, daily racism, and and it's, I have to say, 2 signatures under a letter going to the tax office is better than only the Arabic name.
I'm also quite curious about your attitude to the current refugee wave from mostly from Ukraine, but also from Belarus and Russia, and what you are talking about, this daily racism. So what we see, I think this situation also shows that how much reception these people get here in Germany, or in more striking examples, Poland or Hungary, so which were opposing the migration from the Middle East or from Africa, but they are welcoming the people from Eastern Europe. So just how do you perceive this current situation?
It's completely different. Yes, one aspect is that in the last years Germany developed tools to be more a country of immigration than before. We still don't have the laws that cover this, but many offices and so on, they now have structures and can deal better with foreigners. We have people who speak languages and so on. There are huge differences, of course. One must say that the war refugees from Middle East, they came here with nothing. Some of them really had their t-shirts, and even they didn't have shoes. They didn't know anything. They didn't speak German, of course. They didn't speak English. And they were completely lost here. They didn't understand our culture in any way. So we really had to take them and explain them everything. And but it's completely different with the Eastern European refugees now. We share more or less the same cultural roots. Christianity is a link between Eastern Europe and Western Europe and wherever. That makes things easier because it's a different thinking. And also the Ukrainian refugees, they have a clear vision what they want to do here. A lot of them have some relatives here or friends, and so they came here and said, I want to go to Frankfurt because there is, and so they had a clear, or they asked, where can I get money from my bank account? I only very, very few Syrian refugees had a bank account in Europe. So this is really different. Different is that students here in universities, it's understood what kind of exams they have. Most of them are fit for going on with their studies here. This is absolutely different and I think less difficult. Of course, their destiny is terrible, but being in exile is easier for them as it was for, or still is for, Middle Eastern refugees who first they come here and they say, they come here and say, I don't understand anything. We heard this from so many refugees, especially young refugees. We call them newcomers, and they said, I didn't understand for 1, 2, 3 years what the hell do they want me to do here? What are their expectations? And then they all tell us the same story, that at one moment it was clear to them, oh, now I understand. And as far as one of our newcomers, he said, and in this moment I understood, I'm a human being. I have a will. I am free. I can decide. And I'm responsible for myself. I am responsible, not the family, not the religion, not the something. No, I'm here. I have to manage my life.
So the people who are coming here to Germany or who are migrating to another country, what is what would they like to hear from us, or which words should we tell them?
I think the most important is welcome. You are welcome, and we also behave in a way that you can see and that you are welcome. Yes, we said to the Syrian war refugees, you are welcome, you can stay here. But then they go to this terrible process of registering and so on. The Ukrainians are in a better position, but we hear that it takes months that they get some money from the job center or the permission to work or whatever. So this, I think, you are welcome, and but it's not only it's not only a verbal thing. I think we should change our attitude here. Still, many Germans, many Europeans feel frightened by foreigners. We should accept that immigration is a factor in the 21st century, as it always was. And immigration is something quite normal. And host societies, if they don't seal themselves off, they always benefited from immigration, sooner or later. I think we should reflect this, and that could change our understanding.
In a prior conversation, you also mentioned about yet another project of yours. We haven't talked about many projects you are a contributor to or a co-founder. But now you have something to do on CISR, right?
I never can sit in a chair and read a book. I do read some books, but the next project is a result of Florence, one could say. As we opened Florence, it became a success very soon, and it became exactly what we had in mind. We are a place for communication and cultural exchange. A lot of politicians come here and they hear what we have to say, and and the combination of art, food, being together here, it seems very successful. So as the Corona lockdown started, I sit here and ask myself, what will be the future for this year? This is running, it's nice, but it doesn't need me anymore as an artistic developer. And what do we learn about the success of Florence? And so I came up one morning having a shower with the idea of One Sky Academy, Accademia on Cello. The One Sky Academy is dedicated to using all kind of art and knowledge. The Academy is dedicated to modern ways of international understanding, to the idea of open societies, enlightenment, human rights, women's rights, and all this. And also the goal is to develop new ideas, new concepts, new visions, how we can live together better on this fantastic planet, and we only have one in this century. I think we know a lot what we don't want. We don't want climate change, we don't want garbage in the oceans and so on, but these negative things are not really, they don't really make people move and motivate them to change things. But if you have a positive vision, we had some terrible positive, meant to be positive visions in the last century. They all ended with millions and millions of victims that were killed. But we can also learn from this, and so this is One Sky Academy, and of course it's a place for cultural exchange. So I thought, where should it be? And I came up with Sicily, which I like a lot, but it's perfect because it's in the center of the Mediterranean Sea. The Mediterranean Sea separated cultures, and in the same moment it bridged cultures in the past and does so nowadays. And it's between Europe, between Africa, and between West Asia. So it's nice to have the academy there.
So I wish you good luck with this new endeavor of yours, and with
Thank
all
you.
your projects and programs you have, you already have, and you have on your mind.
I have to face that I'm 65 now, and maybe the academy will be the last really big project, and then I will find, in 20 years I hope I will find to write my books, which I always had in mind to do, but never found the time.
Great. Thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you very much, and all the best.